I'm Howard Berger from Realcomm, and I'm just honored to be here with my friend Gerry Hamilton from Stanford. We're just going to chat a little bit. So, Gerry, you've been coming to Cortec for
10
years now.
Yeah.
For years now, been an advisor and really have been an important part of our conferences, both on the Realcomm IBCon side as well as on Cortec. Take a minute. Tell folks a little bit about yourself, your background, what you're doing at Stanford, and
Yeah. I've been at Stanford over 13 years now. I've got a mechanical engineering background. I've been running our facilities energy management team all that time, and it's been a great opportunity. My portfolio includes our facilities automation center, and I've personally chaired the majority of our smart building projects on campus. And it seems like we always have seed money from the energy management side, and then everybody wants to work with our automation team because we've got the OT platforms and the data. And so it's really lucky that I got into this smart buildings space, but it's been fascinating. I didn't touch on technology at all until I got to Stanford. But once you're doing it, it's hard to get away from it.
yeah, you've had some big wins. I mean, what would you consider some of your your major achievements there, your big milestones?
We did a real big study back in 2016. That was our big enterprise-wide aha moment. And I did our smart campus planning then and have been basically implementing it ever since then. And I think we're getting close to kind of phase 2. What would be our next big tranche of smart campus stuff? We've done some organization updates. We overhauled how we organize our automation team, which was a big win, I think, makes us much more effective. Ruled out some duplicative effort across campus. Built some really strong relationships with IT. Basically, we outsourced all of the network management so that our controls folks don't have to do that. They can worry about controls instead of user access and quality of the system. And I think the thing we're working on right now and have for the past few years is data management and data governance, and trying to break apart the components that make up a smart analytics platform. And we see those breaking down into things like what's the best way to extract data. That's a whole art form in and of itself. And then once you get the data, you got to prepare it, you got to curate it. And so the whole art of transforming the data. And then once you have that, you still got to send it to where you want to use it, right? You want to do analytics in more than just one platform. You want several systems to be able to utilize your data. And that's really the bleeding edge for us right now, is trying to optimize each one of those areas so we're not overspending, we're not overburdening our staff and our partners' time. And it's tough because it really depends upon multiple stakeholders from across the institution. We talk about having relationships with IT, but even IT breaks down into the networking folks, the VM, the server support, and we need support from our applications team, folks who are familiar with managing data or managing applications. And the more layers you peel, there's another group of stakeholders we need to engage with. There's another group of stakeholders, and I firmly believe that we will see the benefit of things like specialization and saving labor. And right now, for example, if I have controls engineers that are really stressed out because they're trying to support data sharing, right, and they're trying to support custom tools, custom visualization, that really wears on them. And how do I get them out of that business and get maybe somebody from an IT application group doing that? And as long as we can feed reliable data, then we'll be fine. So really trying to get the stress off of some folks who are overworked right now and bring in some other folks who I think can have some fun playing in the smart building environment.
Well, I mean, there's a few, unpacking that, there's a few stories there that we could really dive into. I mean, the first thing that occurs to me is, I mean, how do you manage all of the silos, all of the different silos, all of the different stakeholders, get them on the same page, get them talking to each other with organizations that typically don't mix that well. How do you, you've got enterprise IT, you've got the operational technology side, you've got facilities, you've got compliance and regulations that you need. And what I think what really impressed me when we were talking a couple of months ago, so we talked Lincoln and you about, was that you've created this holistic program, really pulling everybody together and creating processes and governance, over data, which I think we all agree, the foundation of any really successful automation program is having data. And with the size and the scope of Stanford and all of the different, potential stakeholders, whether it's medical, whether it's facilities, et cetera, they're huge data requirements.
Yes.
So how'd you do it?
So how are we doing it?
How are you
I
doing
don't think
it?
we
Yeah.
are there. One of the first things that we learned to do on the operation side with the OT teams, so control systems, basic O&M of buildings, is let's start talking the language of the IT space and of kind of the program management space. So we started developing proactively business requirements documents. So we've got mechanical engineers now, controls engineers, energy engineers, who realize that we need to document very clearly what our needs are for very specific applications. So we don't ask for everything anymore. We don't ask for all.
Right.
We get as precise as possible. So if we have a new building, we don't say we want to do fault detection and diagnostics on everything in this building.
Right.
We say we want to support the commissioning of this building. And really, what's the bare minimum we need to do that commissioning? We may later say, okay, we've been 2 years of operation, we want to retro commission this building. What does that mean? What points do we have to have as a bare minimum?
Minimum
And
viable.
let's keep it
Yep.
there, because that keeps people from getting burned out and overwhelmed. When we have things like business requirement documents, we can share that with our IT partners, and they're like, oh wow, we use these too. You've done a very good job documenting what you need. So that helps the conversation start. And then going beyond that is we try to bring in more people than we need. And this is on me, and this is what makes it very difficult. So if I have staff who manage the control system and who are going to own the fault detection diagnostic platform, they'll say, we got what we need. We can take care of this ourselves. And I say, well, we can take care of this immediate need, but we're not going to grow, we're not going to scale. So how do we bring in some partners now without intimidating them? They don't have to do a lot, but give them something to do. Maybe we have them help create a user interface to display the information to a larger group of stakeholders. Can we share this FDD information with building managers or building occupants and make some little wins for these other teams? Because the more folks look into our OT space, professionals in IT, professionals even in just traditional facilities management, they're impressed, they're excited. Smart Campus it's a fun topic, and they see the potential, and we just chip away at that. The fact that we've got 4 Stanford people going to be on a panel here shortly is very telling, right? We've got senior management, never been here before. We have an academic researcher, never been here before, and we've got one of our staff who specializes in managing one of our OT big data platforms. And so just that diversity, I think we're making some impact, slow but steady.
Yeah, and I just have to say thank you for, bringing in Jacques, Chris, and Lincoln, for this conversation, because it just makes me think that, a lot of organizations that might be in the same situation, they really want to wrap their heads around their operational data and do something with it. One of their initial challenges is going to be skills, internal skills and talent. You're, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, kind of in an enviable position that you've got diverse skill set, you can upskill if necessary. Do you go outside for talent very often?
We still work with partners, whether it's application solution providers, whether it's this good old-fashioned consultative services. We work with a lot of partners because we just can't keep up ourselves. And what I find is, we have staff that are learning about the Smart Campus environment, but very few folks were trained or taught in that environment. So there's a confidence component. And sometimes bringing in an outsider who can say, yes, you're on the right track. This is great. Nobody else is doing it, but this is the right thing. Or they may say, you seem to be hung up on this. All you got to do is flip it this way, and the problem's solved.
Being able to leverage some smart folks out there really makes a difference.
Having some outside help really greases the skids.
Yeah.
I did want to make one plug in terms of how we're engaging, and that is getting a bigger pool of stakeholders for bigger wins. And one overlapping interest I see now has to do with resilience and safety and emergency response. Everybody's interested in that, and oftentimes that entails sharing data that we have, either it's utility data or it's building data. And so we have a much bigger group who now wants to do things right, and they want to partner with IT and other folks who already have legacy systems that are involved with reporting and monitoring and alerting. And I'm finding that helps quite a bit. And it's often easier for me to have an advocate from an emergency management perspective and say, I think what those guys are doing over there in Gerry's group makes a lot of sense. Can we run with that? And I think you hear that a lot, and the big plug is find your advocates, and I help them, they help me, and we can really break on through to the other side. So you got to kind of out of your comfort zone. I got to get beyond energy management. I've got to get beyond HVAC, lighting, data, and get into a larger realm.
But at least you have that all within your or I mean, a campus is, you know, college university campus is almost like a small city.
Yeah.
And you are connected, and so there should be a kind of a natural, viable way that you can figure out how to share.
Yeah.
Which unfortunately in private industry is a little bit different, more difficult. How are we doing on time? Are we still?
I was going to comment while we're waiting here. Is a large university, we have a lot of resources.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of people, right?
Yes.
So there's a lot of people to keep
To
up to
deal-
speed, right? And everybody wants to take the higher road, you know, and slacking off. There's just a lot of people to communicate with. So, you know, pluses and minuses.
Okay, so before we wrap, I'm guessing that we're kind of close to time, but before we wrap, what are some of the projects, initiatives that you guys are either looking at or into right now that you're pretty excited about?
Well, the things I get excited about tend to be kind of boring, I think, but I really want to have a breakthrough on what I'm calling a self-service portal for data. And by that I mean taking some of our critical subject matter experts out of the loop. And think of a university as a good way to think of this. We have students, we have researchers, we have faculty. They should have access to data that we have, whether it's energy or building data. And that should require very little hand-holding. We should have guidelines, we should have standards, there should be a portal that somebody else administers. I don't want to administer it.
Right.
And they can go in there and get the information they want. I'm trying to get a viable pilot up and running this year that shows we can do that and shows why it's important. One concern I have is that just because people aren't asking for the data doesn't mean they don't need it, doesn't mean it's not valuable. They're just either they're tired, they're fatigued, they don't want to ask, they don't think they can get it. And I think that's a big problem. People aren't even asking for the information. And so I'm trying to push my team. I go, just because they're not, you know, the wheels aren't squeaking doesn't mean we shouldn't.
Once they have it, and then now then they realize
and if
how
I can
much
tell
they
my
wanted
staff,
it.
listen, it's not your responsibility to support every researcher, but we need to push this. We need to get IT, we need to get other folks involved so that we can develop the portal, administer the portal, and we don't want to over-design it either, right? There's a lot of tools out there that can do this, but again, getting back to what I started with, how do we break this down into its modular components? How do we right-size this self-service portal? You know, I'm thinking a faculty could write their own alarms and rules for the laboratories. You know, if temperature gets above a certain point or below,
why not?
and it impacts their research that week, let them do it. Let them create alerts for their grad students.
I mean, why not create their own user requirements?
Yeah. And so having that flexibility, I think, is going to be another major breakthrough. Again, trying to take away some of the stress from some of the key subject matter experts, but at the same time, move us forward from a functional perspective. And if you have that platform, it really opens up things a lot, because then what's really the difference between a person and a software app, right? Because then any person can access it, then we'll have rules for any software system can access it. And then, boy, we could get dozens or hundreds of apps running our data, finding those hidden insights and knowledge. It'll be the next breakthrough.
Well, that would be kind of an entree into a part 2 discussion on data architecture and data strategy, because that would require, you know, would that be a rethink of your current data architecture strategy, or could you evolve from where you guys,
We're pretty fluid, we're pretty flexible, and so I would really like to have a Stanford University-wide data architecture strategy. And most people don't appreciate the overlap with the OT space and all the other university needs, but at the end of the day, we're all going to be talking about buildings. You know, maybe I'm interested in the students in the buildings, or I'm admitted with the employees in the buildings. Maybe I do payroll, but at some point we're going to overlap, and if we're starting to code buildings differently, we need to have rules for what those attributes are.
Something tells me you guys are going to probably be, Stanford's probably going to be one of the first real examples of that overall overarching holistic, data architecture,
Well,
both on the enterprise.
It'd be an honor to be first, but I'm still hoping we can find somebody out there to copy.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I know you guys you're thinking about it in a way that I'm not hearing from a lot of other folks. So
Well, that's why we're here,
fingers
Howard.
crossed. Yep.
Got to keep talking, got to keep meeting.
Yep. And thank you.
Definitely, yeah, glad to be here.
Really a pleasure.
Yeah, looking forward to the whole event this week.
Yeah. Thank you.